Hey, what's up YouTubers, and welcome back to another Toddy Walnuts collection overview video. And today, by request from a YouTube viewer of the channel, Goron, he asked if I would show my record collection, my LPs, my vinyl, whatever you want to call them. So I thought that was a great idea, and I don't think I've ever done a video like that with my complete collection in one video, so I'm going to do that today. I don't normally keep my vinyl on the shelf that you see in front of you. I have a little spot here under my record player. I actually have two record players, and then I have kind of a little shelving unit down here. It's a little dusty. I got to do some cleaning. But it's too hard for me to crouch down and do a long video down there on the ground. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do half of the collection now, pause the video, put these back, take the other half out, put them on this shelf. It'll be easier for me on my knees and my back that way. So get comfortable, get relaxed. Let's go through and see what I have. Anything from classic rock to movie soundtracks to horror soundtracks. There's some pretty cool stuff in here, so let's take a look and see what I got. Okay, so I went and got myself a chair because I'm right at about face level with the shelf. I'm not sure how this is going to go, so kind of bear with me. This is kind of trial and error here. So these are in no particular order. I did not feel like spending an hour to alphabetize these for a quick video. So well, I'm not even sure how quick the video is going to be, but I'm not going to dilly-dally. Let's get into it here. The first one is a Rankin Bass production of The Hobbit from the 1970s. And the next one is also Rankin Bass, The Return of the King. And these come with 12-page booklets on the inside. You can read along as you listen to the record. And I have The Lord of the Rings, and this is a limited collector's edition picture disc. Pretty cool. And then we have kind of a more deluxe edition. This is also The Lord of the Rings. Now these are from the 70s animated movie, not the Peter Jackson movies. Next one up is Spidey Super Stories on Peter Pan Records. This is also from the 70s. These are not reprints. These are all originals that you're seeing here so far. And this was released in 1977 as part of the Electric Company children's television program, which was a really good show when I was growing up. Now, I come from an Italian family, so we listened to a lot of Italian music when I was growing up, and a lot of these I picked up on secondary market, and some of these were passed down through my family. So this one is Love Italian Style. So this is basically just Italian love songs, and this is an original pressing of that record. And this is Doc Severinsen's band. You guys may remember Doc Severinsen as the band leader on the Johnny Carson Tonight Show. Doc Severin is still with us. Ed McMahon and Johnny Carson are passed away now, but Doc is still here with us. This one is called Tuxedo Junction, and this is kind of like old-timey club music, like jazz at old hotels type music, and I love that kind of music. So this is Nat King Cole, and in my opinion, Nat King Cole is the best voice ever. There are some great voices, but he's my favorite. This is called The Godfather Suite. This is more kind of like lounge music, conducted and arranged by Carmine Coppola, who was, I believe he was the he was related to Francis Ford. I don't remember what the relation was. And then another Italian crooner, Mario Lanza. He was a little bit before Sinatra and the Rat Pack. He was very commercially successful in the 40s and 50s. He was an actor and a singer, and great voice. This is the Student Prince, Mario Lanza. Christmas Hymns and Carols, Mario Lanza. There's a double feature, Mario Lanza, Toast of New Orleans, and That Midnight Kiss. And we're getting into, I got a couple of Dean Martin records. Remember Me, I'm the One Who Loves You. Dean Martin was another great actor, great entertainer of his time. Played in some great Western movies. He was an excellent singer. I think my favorite Dean Martin song is My Kind of Girl. He was great. This one's called Welcome to My World, also Dean Martin. This is Dean Martin. Every Italian household would have a Dean Martin record or CD or cassette tape or 8-track. Same thing with Frank Sinatra. This is called Ultimate Sinatra. And this one's called A Swingin' Affair. This was a reprint. This was the 60th anniversary edition that was put out by Capitol Records a couple of years ago. There's a sticker there. I don't know if you can see it. The flash is kind of washing it out. But it's the 60th anniversary. So it looks identical to the original. So I'm also a huge fan of Red Fox. He's my favorite comedian of all time. I have everything that he's ever recorded between my record collection and my CD collection. I also have some VHS tapes and some DVDs of his stand-up. I have a couple things signed by him, and he was just great. I really loved Red Fox. And they used to call him the king of the party record, and that's what these are, because this was back in the 60s and 70s, before they had like HBO and before there was like a comedy network. You know, they would have, people would buy these records and have little parties at their house. They'd play cards or whatnot, have a drinking party, and they'd play Red Fox in the background. That one's called He's Funny That Way. These are all original records. This one's called Naughties But Goodies. He was definitely one of the greatest ever to do it. He's my favorite, but there's so many good ones over the years. This one's called I Ain't Lied Yet. These are all the original pressings of them. It kind of has that that old record smell to it. You guys know what I'm talking about if you still have a lot of records from back in the day. It's almost kind of a musty smell, but it's not offensive. It's hard to explain. This one's called Fun. And here's another one called Burlesque Humor. You can see that this record is probably 60 years old, 55 to 60 years old. You can see that it has a little bit of aging. So the white cover is kind of blemished a little bit. I don't know if that's mold. It's not really mold. It's just kind of dirt from over the years, I guess. And I did put all of these into these Mylar bags. Yeah, I think they look better, plus it will protect them from shelf wear when you're pulling them out. And yes, I mentioned that I do have 2 record players. There's one on top, and then there's also that brown box is also a record player. And I do listen to records quite a bit. This one's called The Both Sides of Red Fox, and the reason, look at the original price on that thing, $3.98. The whole purpose of this record was that there was 2 sides of Red Fox. You know, there was the one that you saw in Sanford and Son, where he was kind of the bumbling junk man, you know, but everything was clean, you know. And then there was the other Red Fox, where his horns came out when he was on stage and when he was doing these adult shows, and he told some pretty racy and pretty colorful jokes. So there was definitely 2 sides to Red Fox. This one's called Red Fox at Home. This is Red Fox, Where It's At. I have a pretty huge Red Fox CD collection as well, but I'm not going to show that today. I may show that at some point. This is doing his own thing. So that was the end of the Red Fox stuff. This was another show I grew up watching. I don't know if you guys are roughly my age or if you remember this show at all. It was called The Great Space Coaster. And this one was actually signed by that guy. He ended up dying pretty early. I think he died of AIDS, that colored gentleman there. I bought this on a secondary market, so this was never inscribed to me. But it says, to Stephanie and David, all the best, and thanks for having a great dad. I love you. His name was Ray. I don't remember what his last name is. Let's see if we can find it here in the back. Was it Ray or was it Roy? So Ray Stevens, right there, played Roy in the show. That's Ray Stevens, a.k.a. Roy, and he's the one that signed this on the front there. Then I have a signed up album from the band Goblin. This one was signed up by everybody who was in the band. So you got all the signatures there. This is a really nice piece to my collection. This is one of my favorite items, and there's the certificate of authenticity. Not that I really care. I don't really need that because I'm not going to. I never sell anything in my collection. But it's good to have because when I do pass away, my kids can sell my stuff or keep it if they decide to do that. But anyway, okay, moving along. So I do have some occult stuff. This doesn't mean that I worship any way. I don't ever talk about that stuff. There's a couple things on this channel I will never discuss, and it's religion, politics, and there's a couple other things I refuse to discuss. This is just for the fact that I like to kind of study everything. So don't get any ideas that I'm leaning one way or another. This is just occult material. This is called a satanic mass, and what this is it's a recorded mass by Anton LaVey in San Francisco back in the 60s, I believe. I think it was the early 60s, maybe 62. And so it covers a satanic mass because Anton LaVey was the leader of the black church in the San Francisco area, I believe. Yeah, right there. So this is recorded live at the Church of Satan. That's what it was. So that was a limited piece. I think this was limited to 1,000. Then you got the Baphomet there on the front. Here's another Anton, the great Xandor LaVey. He was also an actor, and he was a musician. He was an organist, and he actually had some really beautiful organ music. And I'm sure if you search that here on YouTube, you'll be able to find the great Xandor he went by. And he played carnival music on an organ, and it was really beautiful. It was eerie, but beautiful at the same time. And this is another limited edition. This is a reprint. I think there was an original back in the 60s, which is very pricey. This was a reprint, which was also pretty pricey because they released it in a limited number and it sold out right away. But this is a record of his organ music. So there you have track listings and stuff like that. I'm going to pause it here for a minute. I'm going to get something to drink and I'll be right back. Okay, so getting into some more oddities here. These are odd and these are rare. And I'm pretty sure most people don't even know these exist. But I do have some records from Charles Manson. And these were recorded during his time locked up behind bars. This one's called, that's the name of this record. Supposedly, this was from an image that Manson himself drew and designed and colored while he was locked up. This is a very limited record. And then another one here, we have The Hallways of the Always. I'll be honest with you guys. Manson was pretty talented. He was a self-taught guitar player. He had a lot of time to learn, right? But when he actually tried, his voice wasn't that bad, and he had kind of folk rock music of that era. You know, he would have fit in really well in the 60s and 70s with this music. Now, he wasn't great by any stretch of the imagination. And I would say he wasn't even good, but he was not bad, considering who he was. You know, he was a clown. He was a hobo, you know. But I think if he would have tried and put his mind to better things, he could have maybe been successful at music. We'll never know, but some of these are actually pretty good. So if you ever get a chance, you can probably search here on YouTube and find these for free. You don't even have to buy the record or the CD to listen to it. I'm sure somebody has uploaded some of Manson's music. This one's called The Way of the Wolf, also another Manson record. I mean, that guy had nothing but time. He was locked up for 60 plus years, right? So what do? You write music. A lot of the places will let him get a guitar too. They would let him have a guitar in his cell during free time or whatever. What was this one called here? This is called, what does that say? Walking in the Truth. That's the name of this record. And some of these are pretty hard to find. And what these are independent record companies that are releasing these on vinyl in limited numbers. So here's another occult. This is Aleister Crowley, who was a British occultist. This guy was wacky. This guy was, I'm not going to get into his philosophy, but he basically kind of formed his own religion. And some of the things that he thought was okay to do was very, very creepy. But I helped to crowdfund a movie about 15 years ago called The Abbey of Thelema, which is the property where Crowley used to live, and a lot of shenanigans went down there. You guys can research him if you want to learn more. I'm not going to get into him. This one is called Apocalypse Cancelled. This is a memorial to Anton LaVey, who died in 1997 at the age of 67. This is a pretty cool one. This is an original pressing here, The Occult Explosion. Has been in my family for many years. This is kind of a documentary record style. So I think there's, 2 or 3 records in here. And it talks a little bit about everything from astrology to Satanism to reincarnation to psychic phenomena, aliens, all different kinds of things like that. So this was kind of a documentary for your ears. You know, you can put this on in the background and listen to it. It's pretty entertaining. This one's in pretty good condition for its age. I think this one came out in it looks like 73. I could be wrong about that. I don't know how to read Roman numerals, but I think L is 50, X is 10, so LXX, that's 73, I'm thinking. I don't know. So the next couple were from a fellow YouTuber who has a gaming channel. This is Dan ODay with his River City Rebels, which is really great music. And I purchased a couple of records from him, and he signed them up. Yeah, he's great. I'll leave a link down below to his YouTube channel. They have a gaming channel. They also do music stuff on there too. So yeah, go check out Dan ODay and River City Rebels. The name of his channel escapes me at the moment. That's why I'm not saying it, but I'll link it below. And then I have a whole bunch of Pink Floyd, and most of these are reprintings, whatever you want to call it, that came out over like the last 10 years. These are they're not in order. So I'm just going to flip through these really quick, and then we'll keep moving. This is A Momentary Lapse of Reason, It's a remastered. This is the final cut. This is The Wall. Everybody knows The Wall. It's one of the greatest selling albums of all time. And there's actually 2 Pink Floyd albums on that list. Can you think of the other one before I get to it? Pause it right now. Write it down in the comment what you think the other album is that's one of the best-selling albums by Pink Floyd other than The Wall. And then you can do that now. Write it in the comments section and then unpause it and you'll see it here coming up. Then we have Animals, which was another great album. Pink Floyd started to get a little bit too political though, starting in this album. And they're kind of raging. I'm not even going to get into that, but here's the other one I was talking about. The Dark Side of the Moon, another great album. Here's Wish You Were Here, another great album. This one's Obscured by the Clouds. I think I ordered this one from France. This one is Metal, one of their earliest albums. Atom Heart Mother, another very early. I think this one still had Syd Barrett on the album. But these are reprintings from 2016. This one's called Umagama or Umagama. I'm not quite sure how to say it. Right there. Umaguma. And these are starting to slide, so hopefully these will hold up. Next one's called Music from the Film More. A Saucer Full of Secrets. Piper at the Gates of Dawn. I think this was their very first album. You can see how young all these guys are. There's Sid right there in the middle. It's a shame about Sid. He ended up having some kind of a mental health breakdown, and he wasn't in the band very long. This one is live in 1977. I'm going to have to pause it to kind of readjust these, or they're going to keep sliding, so I'll be right back. Okay, so I just took all of them and put them back on the shelf where they belong, just to save myself a little bit of frustration. But so moving right along, this was the Pink Floyd live in New York City, 1977. This is Wish You Were Here with the symphony music that was with the London Orion Orchestra. Also had some guest appearances. I know Alice Cooper did some stuff with Pink Floyd. I believe this was their latest. This one's called The Endless River. This one was without Roger Waters, if I'm correct. Because Roger Waters, they bump heads quite a bit. David Gilmour. And David Gilmour, to me, is one of the greatest guitarists ever in the history of music. And you would think, with all the talent that these guys had in the band and all the records that they sold and all the fanfare worldwide, really, that they can come together and figure it out just to, you know, I mean, it's a great thing that they have. Why ruin it, you know? This is the Division Bell. This was a great record. And now we're getting into another one of my favorite bands, and I think they only had, well, I only have 3 of their records, the first 3. This is their debut album from Boston. It was self-titled. There's a ticket stub for a concert from 1978. It only cost $8. That's not part of the record. That's just slid in with the Mylar. And this album is like a greatest hits album. Every track on this album kicks butt, man. It's a great album. One of the greatest albums ever in the history of music. And then this was their second album. It's called Don't Look Back. It was a great album, but it was nowhere near the first album. And then this is their third album called Third Stage, and which it was okay. But I still do love, I love the band Boston. It was a tragedy about Brad Delp, the lead singer, and I just don't understand it. But here's another great band. This is the Rolling Stones. This was kind of a greatest hits, if I'm not mistaken. So they're calling this Hot Licks, or Hot Rocks, 1964 to 71. Man, that is some great music. Another one of my favorite guitarists of all time is Frank Zappa here, and I have Joe's Garage, Acts 1, 2, and 3. This is a 4-record set. That cover would not work in today's society. It would be frowned upon to do that. Frank Zappa was a very odd cat. He was very strange, but he was incredibly talented as a guitarist and a lyricist, but he was always kind of the clown prince of rock and roll. But if you guys want to hear a great track from Frank Zappa, if you're not really familiar with his music, type in the search bar here on YouTube, Joe's Garage, and that's a great song. It's really, really good. Check that out. I have Megadeth, Rust in Peace. I have Kiss Psycho Circus with the lenticular cover. I have Ennio Morricone. This is called Paura, and he was the maestro. He was such a great composer and conductor and musician. These are some of the tracks. He was in just about everybody who was anybody's soundtrack for Western movies, for horror movies, for action movies. If you needed a great soundtrack, you would call Ennio Morricone up and he would give you a great soundtrack. Here's Mr. Eastwood, Unforgiven. He just turned 93 about a week or two ago. So good for him. This is a Barnes & Noble 25th anniversary exclusive, and I popped this in and listened to it. It was great. There's actually a song on here that was composed by Eastwood, and let me see if I can find it. I believe it was called Claudia's Theme, which was track 9 on side 2. I believe that's, does it say it on the front? Yeah, right. Yep, Claudia's Theme, composed by Clint Eastwood, and it's very good. Another one that you can pause it here and listen to it on YouTube. This is Candyman. This is the remake of Candyman. It's a 2-record set. I have Halloween 2. This is Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. Comes in a nice gatefold. I didn't have time to open these up because this would be like a 3-hour video. Here's the soundtrack for Days Gone. Great game, great soundtrack. I really loved this game, and I thought the soundtrack was excellent. Such great characters. It was a fun, scary game. It was really cool. The mechanics were awesome in that game. I like how you had to keep fixing your motorcycle to keep, just to keep moving around. These are not in order either, so I'm just going to keep pulling. This is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies trilogy, and this is part 3. This is part 2. And the last one for the first shelf is part 1. So I'm going to pause again, get a drink, move some stuff around, and we'll keep rolling. Okay, so we'll continue here. I'll try to move a little bit quicker. This is the end of it here, though. Again, these are in no order. So the first one is a box set from Metallica, Hardwired to Self-Destruct Deluxe Edition. Comes with 3 records. There's a bonus CD that comes inside with 12 tracks. You get a lithograph set and 8 buttons and a digital download. And I always liked Metallica. I thought they were a great band. I grew up with Metallica ever since going back to Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets and all that stuff. Black Album. They had great music over the years. Next one here is a 10-inch. This is a smaller record of Christmas Evil. This was put out by a company called Death Waltz. and basically you just get different tracks. They don't even have names for they just call them sequence 1 through 12 for a little Christmas slasher movie. Pretty fun movie. So the next one is a laser disc. Since they're the same size as a record, I just keep them in there, and this is Life Force by Tobe Hooper. Matilda May, space vampire movie. I'm sure you all know about the movie by now. It's a great movie. It's a fun sci-fi horror flick. And I have Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Shocking Truth, original soundtrack. This was the original one. It's sold out. It became very pricey. This thing was going for over $100 at one point. And then they just recently released it over the past year. This is the same exact soundtrack, only this one I believe it says recut and remastered. I believe it also has one extra track on this one. So that was also limited, so I'm assuming it's going to sell out and skyrocket. Here from Waxwork Records is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. Great, fun, campy horror comedy. I love the movie. Here's a laser disc for the original, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This was put out by Pioneer, I believe. Am I wrong? I am wrong. Well, it's MPI, which is owned by Pioneer, so I'm still wrong. When you're wrong, right? Here's another one, same movie. This was put out by Elite Entertainment. This has the high-def super scan, they're calling it. So this was supposed to be a better transfer of the movie. This is a Criterion laser disc of I Love Lucy, Criterion Television Classic. I think this is kind of like a greatest hits. So I absolutely I adore Lucille Ball, and I think she was great. So getting into some more horror soundtracks, we have the original first pressing of Friday the 13th, which sold out and skyrocketed in price, and again it was over $100 for a long time. Then they re-released it, which I picked it up to a couple years later. So let's see exactly when was this one released. Shoot, it doesn't say, and I'm not going to open it up. But I would say there was probably a good 5-year gap between the first one and then it sold out, and they waited 5 years before they repressed it. And I think it sold out again. Well, here's part 2. Here's another grail piece in my collection. This is the soundtrack for part 3, which has the lenticular 3D plate. And it's also signed by Harry Manfredini, and he put like a little music score bar on top. And I absolutely love that. And I also have it without the lenticular plate. And now we're getting into part 4. Here's part 5. This was a FYE exclusive, and it had that powder blue color. Because of course in part 5, Jason has the blue chevrons on his face mask, because it's a red herring. And then this was the regular Waxwork release. They're both put up by Waxwork, but the first one I just showed was only available at FYE, and this was available on the Waxwork website. I have Tales from the Dark Side, the movie. Dark Man, which is a great kind of a comic book style action movie. Sam Raimi. I have Creep Show, which is no doubt the best horror anthology out there. I have the original picture soundtrack of Friday the 13th from part 1, 2, and 3. This was put out way before Waxwork started putting these out. I believe this was from the, I'd say mid-80s, 82 actually. So they put out the first 3 soundtracks on one record back in 1982. Then I have music from the original television show, Friday the 13th. I don't know if you guys remember that. It's kind of a Twilight Zone, Outer Limits type show. And we have Friday the 13th 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. Wow, these are way out of order. Here's 7, The New Blood. It kind of bothers me now. I wish I would have even taken a couple minutes just to at least put the Fridays together. And here's part 6, Jason Lives. A great entry into the franchise. Really, really good movie. That's a beautiful cover, too. A little bit of spaghetti western here, The Big Gun Down. And there's the name again, Ennio Morricone. You're going to see that name on just about every soundtrack ever made, pretty much. And just like Peter Cushing is just about in every movie. This is a really good movie right here. I recommend it. Clive Barker's Nightbreed on vinyl. I'm going to pause it here for a minute. I'll be right back. Okay, so we're getting into the home stretch here. I'm not going to take any more breaks between now and the end of the video. So the next one is Reanimator. Look at that cover, man. That's beautiful. That's a cover by Ghoulish Gary Pullen. Everybody knows the movie. It's a great movie. And Richard Band did the soundtrack for that one. Next one is Trick or Treat. This is another beautiful horror anthology movie with a wraparound story. I watch this one every Halloween season. And I have 2 of these for some reason. I think one I bought when it first came out, and then I think the other one was gifted to me. The Howling, John Carpenter. No, not John Carpenter. I always say that and I get it mixed up. It's is this Joe Dante? I'm tired. I'm starting to make mistakes. Here's Day of the Dead. This one was sold out pretty quick. I think they re-released it. And same with this one. This is Dawn. And this one sold out right away. They re-released it, and the re-release sold out right away. But those are excellent soundtracks. And then here's Night for the trilogy there, Night of the Living Dead. Look at that cover, man. That is beautiful. This is a 2-record set. And we have The Beyond, Graham Humphrey's cover art. Dario Argento's Tenebrae. House by the Cemetery. The New York Ripper, which is a favorite of mine. I know a lot of people don't like this movie, but it has I have sentimental attachment to this movie because this was one of the first movies I was able to kind of rent on my own back in the day. Back in the day, you didn't really have to have an ID or a mustache to rent the rated R movie. I was renting rated R movies when I was like 11 and 12 years old. Back then, things were a lot different. So I was renting this when I was just a kid. And I'll tell you, what's even worse about that era was I had a really good friend, and his mother was a smoker. I think I told this story here on the channel. And she would give him a couple bucks, because back then I think a pack of cigarettes were like $1.50 or $2, whatever it was. And she would tell him, "Go to the store, Stevie, and get me a pack of cigarettes." And she would give him $2, and we would go up to and talk to, because we lived in it was a kind of a close-knit neighborhood. Everybody kind of knew each other back in the day. That's when neighbors used to be neighborly, and you would know your neighbor 4 or 5 houses down. Nowadays, you don't even know who lives right next to you. It's different. It's a whole different era. Not going to get into that, but back then, everybody knew everybody. So Stevie, my buddy Stevie, would go up and he'd plop the $2 down on the counter and say, "My mom wants her cigarettes," and they would give him the pack of cigarettes, and we'd take it back. But they had also like a little rental section, and we could rent movies. And I remember renting I Spit on Your Grave, and I was like 12 years old, and I wouldn't recommend little kids seeing that movie, but I did, and I saw this one too. And that was kind of a long-winded kind of reason why I love this movie, but I thought I would share that with you guys. I do love this movie. City of the Living Dead. This is Fulci's Zombie. Great cover, classic cover. Great movie too. Here's Fulci's horror and thriller tracks. This is, I guess, kind of like a greatest hits, because it's tracks from the Fulci movies, but it's just kind of like different movies. You got Manhattan Baby, New York Ripper, A Lizard in a Woman's Skin, The Beyond, Demonia, The House by the Cemetery, and Door to Silence. So there's quite a few tracks on there from several different movies. Here's Cannibal Holocaust. This is Reanimator on Laserdisc, put up by Elite Entertainment. Like I said earlier, I keep my Laserdiscs with my vinyl. They're all the same size. This was a gift to me from Jeff Wedding. This is Halloween the movie on Criterion. I don't know if many of you knew that Halloween was released on Criterion for their Laserdisc, but it was Criterion Collection. Pretty amazing. Great guy, Jeff Wedding. Here's Demons. I ordered this one from Italy. This was a limited green vinyl. This was from a company called Rust Blade that is in Italy. I'm trying to see what the guy's name was, if it's on here. It's like a one-man show. There's one guy that runs the company in Italy, but I didn't see it on there. Here's Autopsy. I believe this was a gift to me from Tanner Ross. This was put up by Arrow Video. Really nice edition. Another great movie here. This is The Iron Giant. I don't know if many of you guys have ever seen this movie. If you have, I'm sure you agree that this is a beautiful, great movie. I really enjoy that movie a lot. There's a Giallo movie called The Case of the Scorpion's Tail. This is from the 70s. Definitely has that vibe. I like that color scheme. Another beautiful record. This one's Silent Night, Deadly Night. Just check out that cover. That's beautiful. The movie itself is pretty decent. It's not great by any means, but by any stretch of the imagination, but that cover is pretty cool. Here's another good slasher. This is a Spanish slasher movie called Pieces. This was also put up by Arrow. And the last one is Absurd, starring the great George Eastman. And this is kind of a soft sequel, I guess, to Anthropophagus, the Grim Reaper. It's not really a direct sequel, but it does have some kind of that feel of a sequel, I guess. Movie from 1982. So that was it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Yeah, leave any suggestions down below if there's anything you think I should pick up. Let me know what your favorite cover was or what your favorite album was. And thank you for watching. I'll catch you next time. Later.